Okeche. Welcome to the Marriage Workshop, the place where we bring you tried and tested wisdom, tried and tested principles, information and knowledge that will help you build intimate marriage relationship. Welcome to the Marriage Workshop. I'm so excited that you can join me in today's video. I did promise those of you that watched the last video that I was going to bring you this topic, and I'm really super excited to be sharing it with you because I believe that it is a topic that will help a lot of people out there on how to navigate the issues that presents in marriage and to build intimate marriage relationship. Now, I said to you that today I was going to be talking about how to resolve conflict in your marriage. The last video I posted was how to prevent conflict, but I am not oblivious of the fact that even though we try to prevent conflict, sometimes these issues manage to creep in and they want to spoil the joy, the harmony, the peace that we enjoy in our marriages and in our relationship. And that's why, in addition to the last video, I thought that I would talk to you today about how to resolve conflict in your marriage. Where you have conflict, where conflict finds its way to your dining table, where conflict finds its way to your sitting room, when conflict finds its way into your kitchen, when conflict finds its way even into your car, when you are driving to church, when you're driving back from church, when you're driving to shopping, wherever conflict is able to find its way into your marriage. Today, I want to give you six valuable keys that will help you to resolve conflict in your marriage. 6 valuable keys that will help you to resolve conflict in your marriage. Now let's get right into it. How did I get to this point of deciding to share with you today on these 6 keys that helps to resolve conflict in your marriage? Now, it has come about because one of our subscribers, sent us a question and they said, my spouse is in the habit of retreating whenever I want to talk things over after an argument. How can we learn to have a healthy argument? Now, I found that question very interesting because sometimes people think that it is not possible to have a healthy argument. And you see, a healthy argument is good for your marriage, but you've got to know how. The problem many couples have is that they don't know how. They don't know how to get around it. They don't know how to make this argument healthy. You can have a healthy argument, okay? You can disagree with your spouse in a healthy manner, in a healthy way. You can do it in a way that it doesn't create animosity, hatred between you and your spouse. And today I am going to show you 6 valuable keys that will help you to navigate this kind of issue. I don't know whether you're listening, the person that raised this question, but today I am going to get to the bottom of it, how you can learn to have a healthy argument. Okay, let's get right into it. Number 1. The number 1 key is pray before you start to resolve conflict. Learn to pray before you start to resolve conflict. Now, somebody may say to me, why do I need to pray? I have just had conflict. I've just had an argument with my spouse. I've just had an argument with my wife. I've just had an argument with my husband, and you're asking me to pray. Now, I will tell you why in a minute. But I also want to say, you see, the Bible says to us in Philippians chapter 4, verse 6, it says, be anxious for nothing. Be anxious for nothing, but in everything, including in conflicts, in everything, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, make your requests known unto God. And now if you read the verse 7, it says, and the God of peace will keep your heart, will guard your heart. Now you see, the reason why you go to God in prayer before you begin any argument is because you are shifting the focus. By going to God in prayer, you shift the focus of yourselves and onto God. You take away the anxiety that surrounds the issues. You take away, the negative emotion that surrounds all of the issues that has led to the conflict that you have. By going to God in prayer, as that scripture says, it says, be anxious for nothing. If you continue to remain anxious about the conflict, if you're emotionally stressed out about the conflict, and you don't find a way to take it to God in prayer, you are not going to have a headroom to be able to go into the next steps that I want to share with you. So, you see, I feel that this first step is quite important. It's quite important. Now, when you take it to God in prayer, you shift the focus of yourselves and onto God. You're removing the negative feelings, the anxiety surrounding those issues, because sometimes we get very emotional about some of these issues. You're taking it away, and then you're also removing the spotlight from each other's weaknesses, and you're depending on God. Now, taking issues to God in prayer before you begin to discuss, before you begin to resolve your conflict, is like waving a white flag. Have you ever seen two parties at war? Now, whenever one party raises a white flag, it means I want peace. It means I am tired of this battle. I am so fed up of this war. I need peace right now. That's why in the scripture I quoted to you earlier in Philippians 4:7, the scripture then says that because you bring it to God in prayer with thanksgiving in your heart, the peace of God will surround your heart, will guard your heart, will give you a direction in which to go. So going to God in prayer is a sign that you're raising a white flag. You're saying, peace time, it's peace time. Let us, find a way to get around this issue. It also shows commitment. It shows that you are committed to finding a solution. Now, I always look at it like this. Can you imagine that you've just had an argument with your husband or with your wife, and one of you comes along and says, you know what, I want us to get to the bottom of this issue, but before we do that, I want us to hold hands and pray. Now, can you imagine the moment you hold hands, as your fingers touch one another, already you're sending some positive vibes. You're sending some positive love messages by the touching of each other. You're already sending some positive vibes that is beginning to send, to cool down the anger and animosity that otherwise would have built up. So it is very, very important to take it to God in prayer. Come, agree with your spouse and say, you know what, let us talk these things over, but let's begin by praying. Let's hold hands. And as you lock hands in prayer, you're already sending positive vibes. The Spirit of God comes in and helps you to, get to the second point that I'm going to share with you now. The second point is equally important. Now, after you have taken it to God in prayer, you've said the prayer, you've touched, and you're now sat down. There's a video that's coming later on in the slides that will show you exactly what I'm talking about when I said learn to pray, to take it to God in prayer. Now, clarify the nature of the conflict. It is important to clarify. What do I mean by clarify? You want to understand from each other what each one is upset about. What are you upset about? What about the issue that created the conflict makes you to be so upset? It is important to clarify it. Clarify the nature of the conflict. This is so vital. Now, is it because of what your spouse said? Or is it because of the way they said what they said? Is it because they spent some money without consulting you? Or is it what they bought with the money? It's not actually that they spend the money without consulting you, but it is what they bought with the money that is really upsetting you. It is important for you to clarify. And as you clarify, there is understanding about what is actually upsetting you. Now, when that happens, you then start to know, why does it really matter? Why does what I said matter? Why is it, what is there something deeper, than what you are expressing, than what you are feeling? Is it coming from somewhere? Now, the reason why this is important is because in clarifying all of this, you are helping your spouse to, know what not to say the next time. And as they understand this better, it is also helping you to know that you have been understood. Remember, we're talking about having a healthy argument. So why does it matter? Why does, what upset you matter? Is it something that has to do with principle? Where is it coming from? It is important for us to get some clarity around that. And here I said, now you see, when you do this step number 2, it saves you time and frustration. I find oftentimes that couples don't take time to clarify, get to the bottom of the issue. What is the real issue here? What is the real matter? It may be something that appears to be the problem may not be the real problem. So when we clarify, it saves time and frustration, because when you just dive into an issue, sometimes even after you have prayed and you don't take step number 2 to clarify, and you just dive into the issue, you just go headlong, you find that you're spending too much time trying to unravel where is the real problem. And in doing that, you cause frustration for one another. So in order to save you time and save you unnecessary frustration in the process of trying to resolve the conflict, make sure to clarify what is the real issue here. Okay, number 3 says, stick to the issue at hand. Now, after you have clarified the issue, the next step is, okay, let's then talk about it. Let's get into it. Let's try to talk about it. Now, this is what I was saying earlier. Many people try to talk about the issues without first clarifying what is the real issue. Now, after you have clarified step number 2, you come to step number 3, then make sure you stick to the issues at hand. Once you have clarified what the issues are, and you say, okay, it is because you spend the money without consulting me. All right, that is the main issue. Now stick to that. Talk about that exactly. One thing you must do, you must try to do, is avoid bringing up issues from the past. You must avoid bringing up issues from the past. There is always that temptation. There is always that huge temptation to begin to look backwards. To begin to say, you did the same thing last year. You did the same thing yesterday. You did the same thing last week. And what all of that does is that it begins to open, some negativity in that conversation. And it's almost like you hit, a stop button. It's almost like you stepped on the brake, because the moment you start to awaken old issues that maybe in your heart were not resolved, that is going to stop you in your track. You will find that you are not able to move forward. So avoid bringing up issues from the past. You see, once you've clarified it, stick to the issue. Stick to the main issue, because it will not work well if you start to wake up dead issues that have been dead and buried from the past. This is not necessary. Now, I said focus on your happiness. One of the reasons why you must not bring issues from the past is because you need to focus on your happiness. What do I mean by that? Focus on your future. Now you have prayed. You have sent positive signals to one another in prayer, in that short prayer that you did. You have taken the focus away from yourselves and you have put the focus on God. You're saying we're trusting God to help us get around these issues, navigate these issues. But then if you start to bring up issues from the past, they are going to affect your future happiness. Sometimes in bringing up issues from the past, you then end up saying something that you didn't mean to say. Remember what I said in the previous video. Say what you mean to say. Don't just mean what you say. Say what you mean to say. Now, the temptation is very high when you start to bring issues from the past. You find yourself saying things that you didn't plan to say. So stick to the issues at hand. Stick to the issues at hand, because that will help you to focus on your future happiness. Let the happiness that you want from that conversation be your focus. Don't be argumentative. This is not a time for you to be, throwing punches at each other. Oftentimes there's that temptation. Your husband says something and you want to give him back. You feel like, I'm not going to let him get away with this. So you throw one back at him. It's like ping pong, pum, 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 pum. You're not going to get anywhere with that. So don't become argumentative. Remember, the focus is on your happiness. Point number 4, no sarcasm or exaggeration. This word exaggeration is coming out again. Exaggeration featured highly, was prominent in the last video. Now, no sarcasm or exaggeration. Now, if you remember in the last video, I said exaggeration is often a lie. It is often false picture. When people exaggerate, it's not the truth. Now, when you exaggerate, when you start to use sarcasm because you want to really, you feel really, really hurt and you want to give it back to your husband. You want to give it back to your wife. When you start to be sarcastic about in your speech, in your tone, in the way you speak, you present that front, you become very hurtful to the other person. The things you say, because Think about it. You're trying to resolve a conflict. Is actually, even though I'm saying you can do it in a healthy manner, it's actually a serious thing, because one of you is feeling hurt. One of you is feeling like, I am not happy. So if you start to throw out sarcastic statements, you start to use sarcasm and exaggerated statements, you're going to hurt the person the more. So avoid doing that. It can be off-putting. Can you imagine somebody is trying to reason with you, and all you are doing is you're just throwing at them this sarcasm, and you're just throwing at them this exaggerated statement. After some time, they just put up a front like, you know what, I don't really care anymore. You don't need that. You don't need that. Okay? It can be irrational when you're being sarcastic in your statement, when you're exaggerating in the things that you say. It can be very, very irrational. And if you want to have a healthy argument, if you want to resolve conflict, you don't need to be irrational, because when you're irrational, you're not really rational. That's the best way for me to put it. When you're irrational, you're not really rational. And when you're not rational, you're not going to be objective about the things that you're saying. So avoid any of these things. And this is why that scripture, I want you to go back to it. Philippians 4, 6 and 7. Is be anxious for nothing. Don't allow your anxiety, don't allow the negativity that is brewing in your mind to be the dictator of your words and your actions. Point number 5, check to ensure you understand what your spouse said. Check to ensure you understand what your spouse said. Now, presumably, if you followed key 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you got here, it shows that the conversation is moving along smoothly. It's ticking along nicely. You're actually almost there. That's what that shows. Okay? But oftentimes, it is necessary for you to check to ensure that you understand what they have said or what they are saying. Now, why is this necessary? It is necessary because you don't want to jump into conclusions. What you don't want to do is to leave that sitting with the wrong impression, with the wrong conclusion. Because what that can do is, the next time an argument suffices, and you have ended up with the wrong impression, the wrong conclusion, the wrong understanding, you misquote your spouse. You start to say they said something that they didn't say. And what that does is that, it just raises further aggravation between the two of you. So it is necessary for you to check. How do you check? You can use words like, can I just check what you said? Can I just check what you just said? This is what I am hearing. Is that what you mean? We've got to become skillful at dealing with conflict. You don't just wish conflicts away. You don't just say, you know what? We have prayed about it, so we will just leave it in the hands of God like some people do, and God will sort it out. No, the last thing you want is to be burying conflict under the carpet. That is not helpful for your relationship. So check to ensure that you understand what your spouse has said. Can I just check what you said? This is what I'm hearing. Is that what you mean? Give them the chance to say yes, no, or correct themselves if you feel that they have said something, that you needed to check. Don't give room for misunderstanding. So when you jump into conclusions, you're giving room for misunderstanding. So make sure that you are checking to ensure that you really understand. Now, number 6, the last point, key points that I'm giving you is learn to keep your conflict private. This is so important. Learn to keep your conflicts private. This is not the time to run to your mother, guys. This is not the time to run to your mother and say, see what she has done again. This is not the time to run to your elder brother or your father, ladies, and say, see what he has done again. This is not the time to call your sister and begin to, narrate, as they would say in where I come from in Nigeria, and begin to narrate your husband to your family. This is not the time to do that. Now, it is important that you keep your conflict private. Your marriage is between the two of you. It's actually between the two of you. It's not an extension of your family. It is a unit that you and your wife have formed independent of whatever family you're coming from. So it's between the two of you. Now, I said again, don't belittle your spouse. When you go tale-bearing against your spouse or about your spouse to your friends and to your family, you are belittling them. Now, if they discover that you have done that, can you imagine what will happen? They will feel really, really hurt, and they will feel belittled. They will feel like you have trampled upon them, because those people that you have spoken negatively to about your spouse will look at them in funny ways and start to act to them in funny ways. You don't want that. Okay? And then retain your value and respect. This is why you cannot go about telling people, telling your friends, telling your family, the fact that you've had conflict with your husband or your wife. You need to retain the value your husband has with your family, the value your wife has with your family, the respect they have with your family and your friends. You need to retain that. And you do that by keeping the issues private. It's between the two of you. In fact, you cannot go and start to tell your children. You cannot, unless the two of you have consented to do that. Now, the only place where I would differ slightly here is where you have tried so hard to resolve the conflict and your spouse is not budging, they're not giving in. Now, that will be the time for you to look for an experienced counselor, somebody who has the right counsel, somebody who can counsel the two of you, somebody whom your spouse respects and can give you an objective counsel. I'm not talking about, there's so many people who have counsels out there, but the counsel there is the wrong counsel. Don't listen to the wrong counsel. Don't do that. Now, when you don't do that, you help to retain their value and respect. Everybody wants to be respected. Everybody wants to be valued. I'm sure you want to be respected. You want to be valued. By keeping the conflict private, you help to retain your value and respect for one another. You don't belittle your spouse before your family, before your friends, before anybody. Because if they find out that you had gone around talking them down, narrating about them to everybody that you find to speak to, that will never augur well for your marriage. So avoid doing that. Learn to keep the conflict private. Now, I promised you I was going to play a video, because this video just helps to demonstrate actively to us all of these valuable keys that I've shared in this video. So I want you to sit back and watch this video. It's very, very short, but just watch the body language of this couple, how they went about resolving the issue. And it didn't just watch the body language. You see, it didn't take them time to get to where they want to go. Okay, I'm going to play that video again, and I'm just going to talk through it. Now, notice how the lady walks in. Just notice the body language. Notice how she sits close. I don't know whether they've prayed before they got here, but just notice the body language. See how she places her hands on his thigh, and she's rubbing. That's already sending signals. I want peace. I want us to resolve this. It's non-confrontational. Let me just play one more time. It's just so amiable in the way she went about it. And you can see how the guy responds. He responds in a positive way. See the way he's nodding along, to what she's saying, because she has come, with that sense of, I want peace. She's raising, remember the white flag I spoke about? She's raised the white flag to say, whatever the problem is, I want us to get beyond it. So, you see, that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. If you can find a way in any conflict, to present yourself in a way that is amiable, in a way that is peaceable, in a way that is looking for solution, not looking for, another fight. Okay? And let's have a recap. Let's have a recap on what I have said so far. So, I have said, pray prior to resolving your conflict. Why do you need to pray? Because you shift the focus away from each other's weaknesses. You go to God in prayer so that you can get this mind that is peaceful, this mind that is void of anxiety. That's why you pray. You take the focus away from, you caused the problem, you did this, you did that. It just helps you to open the door to peace in the first instance. So that's why it is important to pray. Clarify the nature of the conflict. That was number 2. Make sure you clarify what is the real issue here. What is it that upset you, or what is it, or this is what I am so upset about? Let's get to the bottom of the issue, okay? And then stick to the issue at hand. Once you have clarified and identified the issue, stick to the issue at hand. Don't go bringing from the past all other issues and start to throw them in the basket and start to throw them in the bowl and start to say, what about this, what about that, what about that? That just wakes up negativity that will not get you anywhere. It's a big showstopper. You don't need it. Number 4, no sarcasm or exaggeration. Don't forget, exaggeration is often a lie. Exaggeration is the wrong picture, always paints the wrong picture. So don't use that at all. If you're very good at being sarcastic, this is not the time. You need that skill. You don't need it right now. Just throw it away. Okay, number 5, check to ensure you understand what your spouse has said. You know what? Let me say something to you. They say that communication causes the biggest problem in marriage. Now, I agree with it to an extent, but I think there is something even bigger than communication or lack of communication. Now, arguably you can say to me that it's all part of communication. And for me, it is misunderstanding. Misunderstanding is the biggest factor of conflict and disagreement that I find in my line of work as a counselor between couples. Because by the time you start to get to the bottom of it, you see that, even though they're talking, So somebody can say something, but you hear something different. Do you know that? Somebody can, say one thing, but what you're hearing is completely different to what they said. Now, it's not because they're not communicating, but you are hearing something different. So the biggest problem I find is misunderstanding. So that's why you have to check to ensure that you have understood what your spouse said. And finally, learn to keep your conflict private. Remember, your marriage is between the two of you. Don't go to town. Don't take the issues to town. Don't take your wife to town. Don't take your husband to town. It will not help your marriage. It will not help your relationship. Okay, now I hope that all or some of this have been of use to you one way or another. Go over again and play the video and just recap on the 6 keys that I have spoken about. Now, the next video I will post will be on the 9th of March. And I really enjoyed making that video. I really enjoyed making that video. You don't want to miss it. It's targeted particularly to young people, those who are unmarried. But if you're married, it doesn't matter, you will enjoy it anyhow. I have called it, Who Will You Marry? You cannot miss it. You cannot miss it. Make sure you watch that video. It's going live on the 9th of March, which is next week, Tuesday. Who will you marry? Okay, thank you so much for watching this video. This is the Marriage Workshop. Please don't forget to subscribe to our videos. The reason why we want you to subscribe is because we want you to be the first to know whenever we post a new video. So click on the subscribe button on the right hand side. I always want to say left. On the right hand side of your screen, make sure to click the subscribe button so that you're subscribed to us. Please help us to spread the word. Share this video to your friends. Share it to your family members. If there is anyone you know who needs these 6 valuable keys to help them overcome and resolve conflict in their marriage, feel free to share it. Share it on Twitter, share it on Instagram, share it on Facebook, and on every other social media handle that you may have. Please help us to spread the word. Make sure you subscribe and you'll be in the know whenever we post our next video. Now, until I come your way again, which is going to be the video that I post, don't forget, on the 9th of March, next week, Tuesday, where I talk about who will you marry. Until I come your way again, I remain Sam Opeche, your host. Okay, before I go, can I just say something to you? Remain faithful. As you remain faithful, you will become focused. When you become focused, you start to flourish. And as you flourish, you become fulfilled in your marriage and in your relationship. God bless you.